Welcome to the Wordy Pair Podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair Podcast.
I think we nailed it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it and impaled it.
Sure, if that's the way you want to do it. Yeah.
You know what? I can't add a third thing to that because then it's just way too suggestive.
It's just too much. It insists on itself.
It does.
No, so welcome to the latest episode of the Wordy Pair. I am Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we are going to be doing another random potpourri Talkin bouts of our recent stories.
Yes. Recent-ish, I guess.
Recent-ish.
Very recent, actually. But, I don't know, I think my tablet keeps making noise, so that might be in the background here. That's fine. We'll live.
That's all right. I'll cut it mostly out if it's significant.
So,
anyway,
you wrote a story, which I haven't read yet.
I've written, well, since we did our last Talkin' Bout, I've written 3, I think. And
yes,
you've
but I've
written
only
a couple
read
as well.
I've only read one of those 3.
Okay. The one you've read being No Ticket?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I read No Ticket.
So I have 2 more recent than that, and you have a couple new ones as well.
But seeing as, well, I don't know if you've read my most recent one, so seeing as how neither of us has read the other ones, we can talk about the most recent ones if you like.
I mean, I'm subscribed to your Substack.
Oh, wait, you did read it?
I mean, I haven't read it yet, but, I got an email that it appeared.
Oh, well, no, that doesn't help the situation at all.
Sure it does. It makes me
that
feel
provided
better.
Nothing. That provided no useful information to what we were talking about.
Look, we write fiction. When do we provide useful information?
Fair enough. As a physicist, you should know.
Should know what?
You should know that we don't provide useful information.
Well, I knew that.
Let us talk about stories. Would you like to go first? Would you like to tell me about your story first?
Which one?
Your latest one sounds incredibly interesting because of how long it is.
Well, okay, so there's a recent image prompt from The Pit, from Iron Age Media called The Pit, which basically shows a space city that was built inside of a big pit. And so I was
oh yeah, we should really quick talk since you brought up
Sure.
Iron Age. Let's go ahead and plug Iron Age, which we have nothing to do with, nor do we get any advertising money from in any way whatsoever, but we like them. So yeah. Iron Age Media is just a place that they put out a magazine called Anvil Magazine, which I guess they do it through Kickstarter, I think. And
there was just a subscription for the most recent year's worth of issues. I subscribed.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, they basically publish a bunch of indie stories in this magazine, and it's a cool thing. And then these prompts that we're talking about, they're on their website. There's a link that says prompts, and each week they have an image, and with that image is a title for the prompt. Yep. And they're basically write a short story about this, and then you write it, you send it to them, they put a link to whatever you're hosting your stories on.
Yep.
And it's just a fun little aggregator for people to, bounce story ideas around. So that's what that is. But anyway,
yes.
Back to your story.
Well, okay, so I saw this prompt and I spent a little while thinking about it, and for a while I was like, I don't think I can do anything with this, because I was trying to figure out what what would this city with the pit be doing there? Why would it be that way? I was kind of getting all tangled up, and finally I just decided to do it basically, well, like futuristic dwarf fortress kind of thing. They dug too deep and too greedy.
I like it. I was kind of hoping that that's what you were gonna.
And I mean, it's not really that complicated, but it ended up being a lot longer than I wanted, because I wanted to have kind of an introduction that shows the city while it's still working, and then like the fall of the city, which is the second act, and then the end of the city, which is the third act. And so last week I wrote about 10,000 words of stuff for this short story, and I realized it was getting way too long for throwing it up on Iron Age, and so I was like, well, shoot, what can I do? And I figured, well, you know what? Iron Age is kind of the pulpy stuff, so what I'll do is I'll take the action part, the second act, rework it into its own kind of self-contained, short story of about 4,000 words, and throw that up on Iron Age. So I'm kind of gonna work the whole thing into a novella, and my middle chunk, called Cracks in the Walls at the Bottom, is up now, and if you want to preview, you can go take a look at that, but we're going to talk about that for a bit, I guess. So, setting. I thought about... I came up with an interesting idea, I think, which was the idea that in the future, lighting technology will be good enough that you can actually go all the way down deep underground and have lights that are sufficiently good that you don't get sick from not having enough exposure to light, kind of thing, like a sunless society, but not an unhealthy one.
So Ireland.
Well, I mean, I don't think the people in Ireland live 20 kilometers underground.
Well, maybe not, but we needed to be canceled by someone this week, so.
Okay, well, there we go. Well, we're going to be canceled by Scotland eventually.
Yes.
But no, so I came up with an idea. Yeah, ominous. Totally not ominous. No, so I came up with the idea of a city that is like. So imagine a planet where the atmosphere at the surface level is thin, right? Like breathable but thin, like too thin to sustain you. Kind of like how you need an air tank up on Mount Everest, right?
Yeah.
What if what you did was you built a city where on this planet with this very thin atmosphere, you built downward. And then at the bottom of this very, very deep shaft, the air gets thick enough that you can breathe it comfortably. And so it basically is a resort town for people who want to be outside without respirators.
I like it because it gives me an image of people traveling down in an elevator with face masks on, and it's just like,
yes.
You hear do 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 do, and then like halfway down they take their face masks off, and they're all just kind of standing there, just looking at each other.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of pressurized buildings on the surface, right? Like all the buildings have pressurized interiors, so there's not a lot of mask wearing going on in this story, but there is a little bit. But basically, what happens if you build a city like that and you have a disaster situation, right? What difficulties does a city that goes 20 kilometers deep, hold for people? Well, number one is that in order to keep the air breathable in this deep hole, you need to ventilate it constantly. And so the city has a weak point. And the weak point are the 3 ventilation systems that keep the city alive, basically. And so basically what happens is that during the course of what seems like a normal day, one of the ventilators goes down, which is not that crazy of a thing. Each independent ventilator is capable of feeding enough oxygen into the city for everybody. But then the other 2 go down. And so the story is basically about the city managers and the people in the city's attempt to both evacuate the city and to see if they can fix the ventilator problem in time, because they don't know what caused the problem. Because at the same time that the ventilators go down, the network goes down. The repeaters that allow you to get radio waves from the top to the bottom through all that rock goes down. And so the story as a whole, the total story was going to be kind of like a short disaster novella. But this is just kind of like a sci-fi action story, basically following the team of 5 security officers that go to the bottom of the city to try to figure out what happened and basically clear the area out for a repair team that's going to try to get the ventilators running again. So yeah, it's fun. Couple of paragraphs of scene setting and character introduction, and then we just kind of have a fun little Space Marine story. And I enjoyed writing it a lot, and it was pretty fun. They're looking around down here at the bottom. They see these like patches of slime or mucus, and they're not sure what it is. They don't see any movement. All the people have already evacuated, so there's not anybody down there. They don't find any bodies or anything like that. But then they're on their way back to the elevator where they came down to basically to send an all clear. Come on down, guys. And they find a crack in the wall, and inside the crack in the wall, there's a little niche that's been like hollowed out. And what they find in the niche basically is human remains. And they're like, uh-oh, no, this is not good at all. And
kind of like wedged
get
in there.
Yeah. So they had already sent a guy up to basically to tell the repair team to come on down. And so there's 4 of them down there, and they're like, well, okay, keep coming down because we need to get this ventilator working whether there's a hostile force or not, right? Even if we can get it running for half an hour, it'll give everybody working their way up this 20-kilometer staircase, an extra 3 hours to move without needing their spare air. And so, they get into the repair team coming down. Their elevator gets caught on some of this mucus stuff, which causes the elevator to make a lot of noise, which then draws in the hostile creatures. They shoot the hostile creatures. They try to fix the ventilator. They fix the ventilator. That draws more hostile creatures. Fun stuff like that. And then it's just kind of their attempt to escape back up the elevator shaft. It's a fun story. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, and I have to say it because for about 2 minutes now, I've been thinking it. I feel like you could totally corner the market on sci-fi HVAC stories.
Yeah, maybe.
When you were talking about the vents at first, I was like, these guys are going down to fix vents. It's a sci-fi HVAC story.
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah. Well, I mean, they're important because I was trying to think of like what would be the problems that a city like this would have to deal with, and like the whole point is that they have this thick air down at the bottom just because of gravity pulling the air down, but like the air wouldn't stay oxygenated, so they definitely need to constantly be pulling in large quantities of fresh air from the surface and mixing it and pushing the old air out. And so, I was like, well, that's an obvious weak point. What would happen if, what would cause this weak point to be the target of something? And I was originally thinking of some kind of like a saboteur or something like that. But then I kind of just settled on, what the hell? Let's just do like an alien style story.
Alien bugs. You can always rely on alien bugs.
Well, they're not bugs. So the way I described them is that they have 6 gecko legs, six like fat gecko paws that they walk on. They are I can hear the sound of it. Yeah, right. They're charcoal gray with smooth skin like a newt or a salamander, and their heads are bulbous with a grinding tooth mouth with 12 tentacles around the mouth to basically draw things into the mouth. And so that was kind of fun, designing a unique creature. And the cool thing about these creatures that I like a lot is that how newts have like they regenerate their tails, right? Something like that.
I thought that was geckos.
No, geckos. I think geckos also might do it, but newts also I think have like pretty strong regenerative capabilities. But instead of doing regenerative capabilities, what I have them do instead is reproduction by mitosis. And so basically they're shooting at these things, and one of them is climbing up and basically tears one of the ones that they're shooting at in half, and then eats it. And then it has 3 legs sticking out of its back, and the 3 legs start growing. And they're like, uh-oh. So
I just got this perfect image of someone like leaning up against this shaft, just like, I hear something in there. Just flip it, flip it, flip it, flip it.
yeah, basically.
And his gecko feet just crawling up the sides of these vents from the inside. Shmup, shmup, shmup.
So in the story, I have them making a strange, from a distance, I have them making a strange crinkling noise, like paper crinkling, and that's the sound that they hear. That's like, oh crap, more incoming. But basically, yeah, it's I won't spoil the ending of it, but they get into a firefight and some stuff happens, and it's fun, and there'll be a longer version out soon, probably, as soon as I can get the whole thing finished, and because the 5 characters in this short story are only a fraction of the characters that are in the whole story.
Oh, it sounds interesting to me. I mean, obviously, I'm going to read it once it's up, so I will look forward to that. Is it? I was just on your blog. I didn't see it.
Iron Age posted it. I mean, I'm on my blog, and it's the top.
Oh, no, I took a direct link to your blog. That's why. Okay. I'm an idiot.
Okay. Anyway, that was my latest. Just kind of a fun... I mean, it started out as a disaster movie kind of story, and then to shorten it out, I just turned it into I turned the short part into an Alien-style story, and it's kind of fun. The part that I liked most was coming up with all the different things that they needed to make the vertical city work, and designing the creature. That was fun.
I'm a big fan of deep underground stuff and drilling things that happen like that. It's like that was another one of the great things I loved about Mountains of Madness, was how they had that whole excavation section where they found that cave. Just like, ooh, things underground that are mysterious.
They spend a lot of time in that cave too in Mountains of Madness.
Yeah, it's always fun to do a bit of spelunking.
Yeah.
And in real life,
or caving, as people who actually do it call it.
Yeah, all the people that don't know words. I mean,
no. I mean, no. I've actually
I know what
known
you mean.
People who,
yeah.
Well, no, I mean, do you?
I believe so. It's kind of like how people call how people call it geocaching when they're playing scavenger hunt.
No. It's the people who actually do it seriously don't use the word spelunking. And I don't know what
spelunking is a mining term.
Well, I don't know what spelunking is, but they look upon it with scorn for whatever reason. I've known some people who do what they call caving, and at least that's what I've heard from them. So
I would assume that they look at it with scorn because they're doing it more as a sport thing, whereas spelunking implies you just climbing down underground to do a job and dig out some coal or something.
Yeah, I don't know. They seem to treat spelunking as like the unprepared hobby version of it, whereas they're very technical and well prepared. But
it depends on how you look at it. I mean, spelunking was it was a career, and they took a lot of precautions. Well, at least once they learned what the dangers were, they did.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, what have you got recently?
Oh, a handful of things. So I came up with some new characters again because I am just horrible at not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so about 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
I wrote a short story called Alien Bangs in... Oh, shoot, I forgot what it was.
Self-service.
Yes, in self-service. It was Alien Bangs in self-service.
Yes.
Now, as you know, I like to do weird names, so I had an alien, and I said, what am I going to name this alien? Now, this alien... I've got a couple of aliens, and, I've got one that has these little horns on her head that kind of function as hands, and every single time I create a new one, I give them some weird accoutrement like that.
Okay.
So this particular one has these 2 hanging pincers on the front of her head that kind of look like bangs. Okay. And, you would normally associate pincers with something that sticks out, but they just stick down and, like, hang in front of her eyes, and they click back and forth like bug pincers.
Okay.
And so I just called her Alien Bangs, and it just... I don't know. It worked out. Worked out
Yeah.
as a name.
It's got that first 2 letters of the alphabet thing going for it.
I didn't even notice that, honestly. But I had fun having an alien named Alien because it's just a freak coincidence of language. She's something called a Dermot, and they're supposed to be the most highly advanced race in the universe.
Yep.
Alongside another race that is brought up on occasion just because they're one I created before, and I thought I'd flesh that out a bit in this story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in the first story I wrote, she kind of just shows up at a gas station on Earth because she accidentally fell through a time, what I was calling a time scar. So for no reason at all that I am explaining in the story whatsoever, there's these time scars in the future. Nobody knows what's causing them, but they're kind of a nuisance, and there's this group called Time Command that tries to make sure nothing really goes haywire because of them.
Okay.
And she's out doing a little voluntary work. And by voluntary, I mean they're going to pay her some Risbellian gold to do this work. And she falls through a time scar. So she ends up on Earth, and she thinks that, I probably fell 1,000 years in the past or something. And she's visiting a gas station, and she's looking at it like, oh, this is really quaint. This is like one of them really retro places, and she's wondering if she should have a ticket and all this other stuff. Pulls up into the gas station to refuel. I make a couple of jokes about her going to fuel, and she squeezes the handle, and about 10 cents worth of fuel pops out, and she freaks out and shuts it off real quick. She's like, whoa, why would anyone need this much fuel to run a spaceship? Jeez. Well, it turns out, she's basically fallen back to about the year 2027. And she's from way, 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 way further in the future than that. Like, we're talking like 1 billion years in the future. So she has no idea just how far she's fallen back. And she's kind of just, doing her thing, thinking that there's nothing weird about her being there. Because in her head, it's like, oh, people on Earth know who Dermots are. There's nothing wrong with being here. And she's got purplish bluish skin. She's got these pincers on her head that kind of click all the time that everyone's kind of mistaking for hair, but it's like, why is your hair moving? And then she's got big tufts of orange hair, and she pulls her spaceship in front of a bunch of cars in this gas station. Doesn't even realize everyone's looking at her. And the funny thing about her species is that they are absolute geniuses. But they also gesticulate wildly, and they're constantly talking to themselves because their hyperactivity is what causes their brains to work in overdrive. Okay. So she's remarking on everything in mostly normal English, but she makes these strange exclamations constantly. Like she'll say things like luminiferous aether when she gets excited about something. Yeah. Or, she sees old-fashioned candy bars in this gas station, and she's like, ooh, high calorie, and just, like, random phrases like that.
Okay, sure.
I've kind of got her just in this moment where, she's like, well, I got to solve this problem. It's not a big deal. And then slowly as she's, getting this gas, and she's done all these weird things in front of all these people, and she's completely taken everything as normal, she finds a newspaper rack, and it's got a date on it, which is, the classic time travel trope.
Yes.
Except she doesn't know Earth dates. So she's just looking at it like, ooh, I wonder just how far back I fell. And so she has to do a calculation based on a Resbellian calendar and convert it to her own time. And she's like, oh, this must be a gag paper because it's yada, yada, yada. And then she slowly starts to realize her mistake. And she starts looking around at all these people that are just staring at her. Mm-hmm. She goes up to the counter at the gas station, drops a wad of gold in front of the dude, and says, for the gas, and just walks out with her shoulders hunched. Climbs back onto her spaceship, and jets out of there, just as there's a bunch of, like, sirens and everything in the distance. And she's up in her spaceship, just lamenting the fact that Time Command is going to have her hide over this. And she's plotting out how she's going to solve this problem. And then she realizes that someone else is on board her ship. And it's this girl that happened across her spaceship just as she was pulling into the gas station, and just took it upon herself when she realized that this was an alien spaceship, that she was going to run up into the ship and try and take something from it.
Mm-hmm.
Her excuse was, well, you know how it is. Everyone on TV sees these things and nobody ever gets proof, so I was just going to try and get some proof. So now she's like, well, great. This makes it worse because now I've interfered with human civilization. And she's basically like, I need to kidnap you for a while. So she talks her into going with her, and they're going to build a time machine. And she has a time machine. She can already travel back to the future if she likes. But her time machine will be picked up by Time Command. Her plan is to build a really crude time machine that won't really come off as anything but a strange blip on the radars of Time Command.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that story ends. It's just like, yeah, just travel with me. We've got like a 600-year window that we can travel in and get all the parts we need to build this time machine. And if you do that, we'll call it even for you trying to steal from my ship. And that's it. That was basically the first story. It was just this big joke. I kind of made it a little bit of satire on Doctor Who, where instead of being a genius who, has everything figured out and notices everything in a way that kind of gives him the edge all the time, she's marginally oblivious to a lot of things, but then she's also from a race that's so advanced she's prepared for anything.
Okay.
I'm working on a third story with her where they show up in the middle of a war zone, and it's kind of this. It's just one big gag where she pulls out a Gatling gun from nowhere. She has what she calls all this luminiferous technology, where things form out of the aether of lumine itself.
Mm-hmm.
So she forms a Gatling gun from nothing, and she's just opening fire on all of these hostile creatures while trying to protect someone. But she's not killing any of them. And the joke is that this machine gun thing, she's like got a crank and everything on it. She's just rotating this crank and firing with this blank expression on her face. She's a really ditzy looking alien. And the girl that's with her name is Jupiter Maxine Phillips, is kind of like, what, so you're just going to mow them down? And she's like, no, Dermot technology doesn't kill anyone. We're a pretty pacifist race. The thing is, they can't really progress as long as I'm firing. It blocks their forward movement. So so they're going to just get annoyed and give up. That's how we win all of our wars.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on now. But the most recent one was, I kind of took the one of the Iron Age prompts again, which are I've been doing a lot of short stories based off those lately, and it was one with this. It was an AI image. I think they use AI for all of their prompts. So the AI image showed a girl sitting in front of a helicopter, kind of in like flight gear, kind of a rugged, like almost military look to it.
Yeah.
And the background looked like a helicopter, but it also looked like it was jutted up under some giant rock formation instead of having propellers, so the AI didn't quite understand what a helicopter was in that image.
Yeah.
So I took the imagery of the rock and said, okay, we'll have this take place in the desert, and there'll be this girl that I don't remember exactly how I came up with this idea, but I decided it was going to be a girl that is from Aliens time, who works with Time Command, and she has a helicopter that looks like an old Earth helicopter because she, for some reason, likes her time machine to be this really retro-looking thing, and nobody really knows why, and she never explains it. As you know, she's supposed to be a character that's kind of like one of their really good agents for Time Command, but she's a little mysterious and not much is known about her. So in this story I wrote, you find out why that is. The story opens up with a girl working on Earth in the year 2042, which is where Alien Bangs and Jupiter Maxine Phillips currently are.
Okay.
And they're there, hunting down their time machine parts. In the last story, I kind of ended it with them saying, hey, let's go 15 years into the future. We can get you a really good chair in that year so that you can, join me and we can time travel around and get our parts. So they were only there to get Jupiter a chair for the cockpit.
Right.
And while they're there, this girl is like, she flies a rescue helicopter for a nearby military base, and she had just come back from a mission, and she was flying home talking to someone over a radio. While she's talking, there's a bit of a jolt to the helicopter, and she doesn't know what it is, but, it kind of brushes it off, and the next thing you know, she's nosediving, and it's a crash.
Okay.
So the thing that caused her to crash, which, is revealed later on, is one of these time scars. So this causes Alien's ship to pick up this crash and pick up the signal that the helicopter sent out, which I actually didn't explain that part in the story now that I think about it. But so she basically gets a signal that there's a crash, and she's like, well, I'm a Dermot. I'm like the time travel civilization. I'm pretty much obligated to help any time traveler in distress. So we're pretty much screwed. Time Command is going to find us now. They're going to know that I'm way, way back in ancient Earth. And that's it. This is pretty much a big mess. Let's go help this person out. So they fly out to where this crash is, and they hide their ship, and they go and look for the crash site. The moment they get there, Alien is like, "Oh, this is way worse than I thought." She recognizes the girl in the crash and the helicopter as being this person from the future that everyone calls the Chopper Girl, which, funnily enough, is the name that the military base used for her at her insistence.
Okay.
So they drag her out of her chopper. Jupiter is taking care of her. She's unconscious. Alien gives her some weird invisible medicine that Jupiter doesn't know. She doesn't understand what it's doing, but it's just like, yeah, here's a little vial of something. Tap, tap, tap. Jupiter's thoughts at this point are like, I hope that's not spraying up into my face in the wind here. So Alien says, all right, well, we can fix up her chopper here, and everything should be good, and maybe we can convince her to just sort of let this one slide. And it's really weird. She explains how the time scar must have ripped all of the time travel technology off of the Chopper Girl's ship.
Yeah.
So she goes and gets her ship, and she fits out this helicopter with a bunch of Dermot time travel technology and completely repairs it from the crash. I described it sort of as these lights were flashing from her ship, and it caused the helicopter to sort of look like it was inflating back to its original shape.
Okay.
But now it's being retrofitted with time travel technology.
Yeah.
And now this girl is slowly waking up. Alien Bangs is very, very hyperactive alien. So to Jupiter, it looks like she's really rushing things, like she's in a hurry to get rid of this girl.
Mm-hmm.
The girl's a little bit, she's a little bit swoony here, a little still recovering. The medicine that she was given is apparently doing something to repair any damage in her brain from a concussion. And it's kind of like shocking her back awake. And the whole time Alien is explaining, it's like, no, it's these people from the future, humans from the future, their brains are way more evolved, so they need the repair is just going to, do what it needs to do to make sure everything is on the level. And she says, but she might need a kickstart to her memories. And so she grabs the girl and like butts heads with her and says, yeah, I'll just implant some of the memories I have of her into her head. So that'll kind of speed up the process.
Yeah.
So at this point, this girl is just waking up and seeing this big blue alien over her, and the first thing that happens is her head is grabbed, and they're like, their heads are like butted together, and then she just feels this explosion in her head. Mm-hmm. And now she has all these memories rushing in, and she's kind of confused. It's like, these are my memories, but they're not quite right. And she's like, she can't recognize a lot of things. She's looking at her helicopter, and she says, this is Dermot technology. And she recognizes that it's exactly her helicopter, but it's also not hers. Like, she's getting two conflicting memories.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then she's like, wait, she's having trouble remembering her name. So she's like, what the heck was my name? And Alien's like, oh yeah, you're Adrala Star. That's your real name. And so she just sort of is like, yeah, that sounds right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then she sort of passes out, or starts to pass out. So they're like, all right, we got to get you to a future hospital, and about 1,000 years in the future should do it. They should have just the technology they need to, help you out here. So they throw her in her chopper. Alien sets the controls to take her to where she needs to be, leaves a beacon so a time agent can find her, and sends her on her way, sends her packing with all of these memories forced into her head.
Yeah.
After that happens, throughout the story, there's been some conversation between Jupiter and Alien where she's like, "Oh, can you teach me to speak some Dermot?" And she's like, "No, your brain would basically melt if I tried to. It's it's a really it's like particle bridge syntax or something. I made some nonsense up for it."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, only humans from the future would really have brains evolved enough to be able to speak our language even conversationally." And after the whole thing with the chopper girl, Jupiter says, "Well, what if you had done that memory transfer thing to me?" And she goes, "Oh, well, it would have felt like an explosion in your head. It probably would have wiped a bunch of memories and messed up a lot of stuff. You would have had a lot of conflicting things going on in your head." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And there were some suspicions already on Jupiter's part that this girl that was with them was not a time traveler. She's like, she's got pretty normal things on her for a time traveler. And even if all of her time travel technology was stripped away from the helicopter, she's just like, that's just a helicopter. It's not a time travel machine. And, but Alien is so sure about it. She's just going with it.
Yeah.
And, finally there's a point in the story where she keeps asking Alien these questions about all the things that would have happened if just someone like her had tried to do all of these things, if she'd gotten all those memories. And eventually Alien is like, "Yeah, no, it's cool," and they're about getting ready to go and do their thing and get started on their own mission again. And then Alien just slowly turns to Jupiter and goes, "Oh my god, I think I just created the Chopper Girl." So
yeah.
So the Chopper Girl's in the hospital in the future, and she's having trouble with those conflicting memories. And the person that did it to her is starting to fade from memory a bit. And she slowly realizes, "Oh wait, I'm about to fall asleep and wake up another person, aren't I?" Which is what happens, because she actually, one of the jokes that was in the story was that the Chopper Girl is one of the people that had fetched Alien Bangs a few times and pulled her in front of Time Command for a bit of admonishment.
Yes.
And so when she first transfers her memories over, she's like, "I know you. You're Alien Bangs." She's like, yeah, can we kind of work out a deal here? And she's like, yeah, whatever, because she was too confused to really care.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically I guess technically it's a bootstrap paradox story.
Yeah.
But it's just one of them things where this alien she's so oblivious to everything around her that she keeps making these really, really big mistakes. And it seemed like a good fit for that particular prompt. And that's
fair enough. It works out.
That's basically the whole story. I mean, there wasn't much to it, but I put a lot of jokes in there that make it worth reading.
Yeah.
Even though I'm
looking at it right now. There's a lot of funny stuff in here.
Yeah, I kind of spoiled the ending on it here, but
you monster.
But the jokes are what really makes that one. There's a lot of conversation between Jupiter and Alien going into it.
So there's a lot in here that you didn't talk about, so it's definitely still worth reading.
Yeah, I have a tendency to just tell my whole story sometimes. I love it, but it's pretty cool that these prompts keep coming up, and it gives me excuses to make more characters. Yeah. I never really used prompts a lot until the Iron Age site, Iron Age Media, came around. And then I was like, you know what? I'll give it a try. Because, sometimes, if I entered a short story contest, there was usually a prompt. And I would always take the prompt and be like, all right, how weird can I get with this prompt? And I kind of do that with the Iron Age stuff, too. I'm just like, how out of left field can I get with the image that was given here? nobody's going to expect a story about someone named Alien Bangs coming from this picture of a girl sitting in front of a helicopter.
Sure.
Yeah, there's really not much else to say. What about? I think I like to focus on like the different quirks and strange things about characters more than you do. But was there any standout characters or character traits or anything in your Pit story?
Well, I mean, they're so. I mean, they're a team of soldiers kind of characters. So they all have some slightly different. One of them is the leader, and one of them is the comms officer, and one of them is the tech guy. And for a short story like that, there's not really a whole lot of time to. And of course, the tone of the story was not the goofy, quirky thing. So
yeah.
I didn't really write them that way, but
well, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be goofy or quirky, but like, just things that kind of, I don't know, any like personality traits or something that are particularly outstanding, or.
No, not in particular. I mean, they're kind of on a mission, so
okay.
They're professional and just most of the dialogue is chatter between different characters, kind of explaining what they're doing or trying to get a hold of the people up top, kind of thing.
Yeah, you are far better at that than I am. Like, even the beginning of that Alien Bang story, there's a bit of chatter between the chopper girl and the military base she's talking to. And I was going to keep it pretty normal, but of course I threw a couple of little sly remarks and jokes in there, like I always do, because it's...
Yeah.
I mean, that... I feel like in a lot of ways there's that, like, backroom dialogue that people that aren't necessarily connected to the military seems to make more sense if they're not, like, directly with the organization, the way they would talk.
Yeah.
I make a joke about how he reminds her to say over at the end of transmissions when they're being serious, and she's a bit confused from the jolting of the helicopter, so her next response is copy, over, and he kind of remarks back, it's like, technically you didn't say anything. But yeah, you do the straightforward dialogue a lot better than I can do.
Well, yours has a lot of quirky, like, I don't know, the tone that you manage is always very fun, so I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if fun's the right word. I mean, because straightforward dialogue in a lot of stories is also fun. Like, I don't...
It can be, but like, no, I mean, like playful, maybe a better word than fun, but there's always there always sounds like there's a joke behind your dialogue that you're not quite getting, in addition to the jokes that you do get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess that kind of makes sense. Almost everything I do has a little bit of levity to it, even the darkest stuff that I've written, for the most part.
Yeah, I don't do levity very well. I'm trying to learn, but it is a slow process.
Yeah, I'm actually racking my brain to think of anything serious that I wrote besides, like, Sylvia Saga.
Mm-hmm. Well, even Sylvia Saga was not
not completely
serious.
It was like it was kind of funny because there was that tipping off point. Like, once the alien Scalvaros became one of the good guys, he started cracking a lot more jokes with everyone.
Right.
He kind of humanized after that, whereas before it was just like these no-nonsense aliens that were invading Earth and would kill you if you became hostile with them. I don't know. Do we have any other stories to talk about? Did we?
Well.
Yeah, we're only at the 44-minute mark here. We should probably try and fill another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, my other recent story was The Ultimate Drink, which is just kind of another journal-style story that I wrote. There was a prompt called The Canteen, which just showed like a picture of like a space bar called The Void, and so I was like, well, what can I do with this? And I was like, well, what if and so the result was kind of a what if and like I kind of made a mystery box and I didn't make an answer to it, and I did that deliberately. It was like, mystery box. because the way it is that basically this guy, the whole story is basically written as a note that was found in an empty hotel room in a city on some city in a mining on some mining planet. And it's basically the last will of this one guy who's like, yeah, I was getting a drink somewhere, and some guy walked up to me and he was like, oh, you're getting the expensive stuff here? I never buy the expensive stuff at these kind of bars. And he basically told me about this place on this planet where like they set it up so that I put it forward as like really tasting the drink, and like I make a joke about like what do you call them? The sensory deprivation chambers. And he's like, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. They do all this really high tech. And so I basically brainstormed a bunch of really cool, like, high tech ideas on how to, like, isolate the experience of a drink and how you might do that with technology. And basically this guy writes this, the whole thing is written, and the guy never came back because he's like in the first paragraph, he's like, well, I'm writing this down because I have a bad feeling, but there's not really anything behind the bad feeling. I'm probably just going to come back and crumple this up and throw it away. But then, basically the story is that he gets directions to this place. He gets a description of this place. And this guy walks away and he's like, you should go check it out. And so he follows to check him out. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go check out this bar. And yeah, if I don't come back, well, here's where I left. And so it ends with just like, well, is the bar evil? Did the guy telling him about the bar trick him? And none of that is answered. It's just a mystery box.
That's beautiful. I like leaving a lot of things unanswered sometimes. It's because usually I write something down the road that fills in those spots, and that's fun.
Yeah.
I always enjoy if I'm reading multiple things written by someone that, I come back and it's like, oh, okay, this is related to this and this is related to this. I prefer that much more than reading entire series of books. So like,
yeah,
if I read 10 books in a series, I'm just like, okay, these are the 10 books in the series. But if I read 10 books that one author wrote, none of them are related, but they have all these things that kind of relate, I always found that a lot more fun. Just to like reflect on, what was the author thinking when they connected all this?
Yeah.
So it's just one of them things that, like, you might write something 10 years from now that comes back and relates to that and kind of explains something that happened there. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We have a few minutes more to fill. How about, was there anything in particular in what you wrote that, like maybe how did you come up with it? What gave you the idea for it?
Well, for the ultimate drink, it was at the bar was called The Void, and there was only one person in the picture. No bartender or anything. So I was like, well, what would it be like if there was a like a bar that tried to void everything but the drink, And so like I just kind of sat down and I brainstormed ideas. It's like, well, okay, so we need to get rid of all sound. Okay, so there's a headset that like covers your ears, but it doesn't just cancel out. It's not just like noise canceling headphones. It also like cancels out the sound of your own heartbeat for yourself. Like I kind of played around with the image of like, imagine if you took a seashell and put it up to your ear and didn't hear anything. Like, how would that feel? I thought about like, okay, well, we need to have pure air, and so I'm like, well, they generate nitrogen and oxygen from chemical processes, and they cycle it through the room in some high tech way that makes it so you don't feel wind either. They moderate the temperature. They have a stool that you sit on without touching, and you hover over it with a principle kind of like how magnets will levitate and get stuck over a superconductor. And so, like it was just fun, kind of. Oh, like the glass is made of pure fused silica. Just a bunch of different little like technological tricks that I thought up to isolate the sense of taste from all other senses.
That is positively fantastic.
It was a fun little brainstorming session, and just the fact that there was like only one person in the picture and that the bar was called The Void kind of got me there, because I'm like, well, I don't just want to sit down and write like, yeah, the dude walked in, put through the double doors of the canteen, and hey, you something 6-shooter. And it's like I was like, no, let's really dive into this idea of this canteen here, and make it not like a
Serve me up something good, you sassafras sucking
yeah.
varmints.
Get rid of all those cliches and make it instead like a gourmand story, which is always fun. Like I always enjoy stories or characters where like focus on something where there's like a good focus on something or somebody's ability to do something. So like I mean that's probably one of the reasons I like Nero Wolfe so much is that he does that in many ways, not just a gourmand way, but also like his fixation on language.
Oh yeah, he does that with nearly everything as it revolves around
Yeah.
Wolfe, and even Archie to a degree.
To a certain degree, yeah.
But like anything revolving around Fritz, Wolfe, or Saul Panzer seems to have that air to it.
Well, I mean, Saul Panzer is a remarkable man.
He's an exceptional man.
An exceptional man. Yes, there we go. God, I screwed that.
It's okay. You've probably read the books more than me, but I may have watched the show more than you.
Despite the fact that I own both DVD sets and you do not.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that brief period when the show first came out where I basically rewatched it 100 times. I mean, it was just nonstop. That was the only thing I was watching.
Worth doing.
It was so good. Yeah, I know we've said this before, but we cannot stress this enough. We are huge Nero Wolfe lovers, and everyone else should be too, because it's great.
It is, and that A&E series is fantastic, and it has higher quality. It has higher quality than most Hollywood movies.
We're talking about movies again.
No,
it's okay. It's Nero Wolfe. It's worth it.
It's Nero Wolfe. It doesn't count.
Yeah. So I see one of the things that like over 2 decades ago now, when I really first started getting the idea into my head that I should do some serious writing. One of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that, like, I hated stories where things made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Now, there's one or two things in that Alien Bangs story that I'm still kind of kicking myself over, but I'm like, no, it's done. I'm done with that part. I can write something else next time. But I feel like there were like 1 or 2 things that I didn't quite define enough. Kind of like the thing with them picking up the SOS on Alien's ship, even though the craft wasn't really from the future, so there shouldn't have been any. But I mean, I can write that off as, oh well, she fell through a time scar, and that's why they picked up that signal, and maybe that's ex post facto explaining how it worked. But you don't have to be perfect.
It doesn't need to be perfect.
Yeah, but like you were talking about trying to work out all the details for this story, it's just like I always wanted to make sure that anything to do with some weird quirk of technology, even if it was completely fictional, I wanted there to be some degree of sense to it.
Sure.
So every single thing I write, I pretty much have some reason that these things happen. Even if it's just some offhand explanation like, oh, your unevolved human brain can't speak our language because we speak in some weird thing that I made up.
Yeah.
It's gotta have some kind of reason.
Yeah, sure.
I've actually got a character that I've written in other stories that I've never published, but
okay.
I think I have one story that I did put out back when I had my own website, and I haven't put it back up yet. She was my original science fiction character, my most advanced creature in all of the stories I wrote, and I came up with her because I was trying to come up with very advanced things that would explain how someone could do what is essentially, anything that you would want to do in a science fiction or even fantasy story.
Sure.
Like what were the reasons that this character can make all of that happen? And the trick is that all she really is a really, really old inventor who has no concept of death. So she's about 400,000 years old, big old brain, lots of technology. Now, this was before I got back into Doctor Who, so it was just kind of a coincidence that she's flying around in the most advanced spaceship in the universe. But because this was like, God, when did I come up with this character? 1992, something like that.
I don't know when you came up with the character for sure.
I'm mostly talking to myself. Oh yeah, by the way, the Dermot character, the fact that she talks to herself constantly, I had that idea because I always found myself talking to myself about my own ideas when I would talk to other people. So like I'm doing
Sure.
now, like, oh yeah, like asking myself questions that you couldn't possibly know the answer to. That's kind of what I did with that
I
character.
came up with this character how many years before we met? Oh,
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, so I just kind of like bullcrapped a bunch of reasons why she could do all these things. And it largely came down to her being a character that I called the Space Conqueror, who had
Yes.
technology that could manipulate space in all sorts of ways. So I had her going around defeating these godlike entities, one that could change reality on a whim. She trapped her by... So I took the idea that the universe is infinite. So there must be infinite civilizations out there. So there must be infinite numbers of civilizations that have come up with the concept of public parks.
Okay.
So she took every public park throughout infinity, made it its own little space, and trapped this creature within that space so that she couldn't affect any of the reality outside of public parks. So I now had this other character who could manipulate reality, but was a prisoner within the very concept of a public park. Could appear in any public park in the universe, but couldn't leave them ever.
Right.
And I made that a regular character in other stories where people would occasionally find her and get advice from her. And she's largely not playing sides in any conflict. So whether she helps or hurts is, entirely on her whim.
Yeah.
And those two are probably the two most powerful characters in all of my stories. With the third being quite obvious, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I haven't quite had all three of them cross up yet, but I made plans for that long ago. Yeah, that's kind of how that happens, though. Like you did the whole gourmand thing, as you said, with the drink, and
yeah,
I come up with aliens based on my own quirky, silly habits of talking to myself. I don't
know that I've ever created a character that talks to himself or herself significantly.
I really like aliens.
I should do that sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I really like doing like the whole alien that doesn't quite grasp English perfectly.
Yeah.
A lot. So I actually have another one from that story I wrote where the alien visits that colony and she thought she was going to Earth but didn't, and so she's like, oh, well, I'll get a part-time job. And it just becomes normal that there's an alien living with these humans on this colony. And but she's like a first contact situation, and all the scientists are weirded out that she's just like, no, I just want to work my job here. It's all cool. But I had her talk in this really weird way where she doesn't quite get English, and she uses weird phrases. Like when she calls things cool, she calls them love instead of cool. Or she uses love as a replacement word for a lot of like surprise or when she's impressed by things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to do things like that. I think almost every story I have a character that talks a little weird.
Yeah. Or doesn't talk at all.
Yeah, which is probably the most fun I ever had doing that.
Well, see ya.
But I'm trying to remember what exactly it was. It was a conversation that you and I were having when I came up with the quirk of that alien constantly saying her thoughts out loud. It was, I think it was the last time we were recording. Or no, it must have been before that, because I wrote that story before our last recording. But yeah, it was
quite I mean, you wrote that story on... You posted the self-service on February 9th.
Okay, yeah, so it was a while ago.
It was a while back.
It feels more recent because I just wrote that last one with her, so it's...
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Was it when I was talking about that book series that had the... What did I call it? Terry Pratchett after a stroke or something like that?
No, it wasn't that, but
It wasn't that.
That was pretty funny. So I know that because I didn't come up with the character itself. when that happened. That was just something I added in while I was writing it.
Yeah.
The character itself was originally I had in mind the image prompt for that story was a girl standing in front of a spaceship.
Yes.
And so originally that picture of that girl was what I had in mind for Alien Bangs, but that image instead ended up being the girl that sneaks onto her spaceship trying to steal something.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I wanted to make the alien herself a little more derpy. I gave her, like, I mentioned something about her bones being a little more flexible than human bones, and so she walked funny.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second story, I made a comment about her flimsily banging her hands on her console in frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the fun things that I like to add. I don't know not sure what your process is for doing that, but I figured I'd add a little bit of that just so it's like, hey, this is how I write. So, if
Yeah,
you
I mean, I just do a lot of brainstorming. I sit down in front of a blank piece of paper and just write down a bunch of random stuff, and then I kind of weed out the ideas that I think or rather weed in the ideas that I think are good, and then I kind of just try to incorporate them into a plot, and I spend a lot of time walking around in circles, thinking out loud. It's fun.
I know on occasion you've remarked that you think it's you said something like you think it's kind of neat how I don't really write anything down and I kind of just let it all come to me and then eventually just sit down and write.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you from experience, it works for writing great. I won't deny that. But that's probably the reason why you have a PhD and I don't.
Possibly, yeah.
You
might
are,
have something to do with it.
You are much better at sitting down and writing things out, brainstorming and putting things on paper before you do things. I was never a good note taker. And I feel like if I try to take notes,
and when you did take good notes, they got ran over by a truck.
There was that didn't help. But even when I was taking notes and trying to use them, I was always better at just mulling things over until I eventually got what I wanted. I'm just not built the same way for doing the whole brainstorming. And I keep seeing, like, you asked me before we did this if I had seen anything on writing Twitter recently that was worth talking about. There really wasn't much, but I did see someone with kind of a half-heartedly joking, a hot take of people who aren't actually like preparing before they write are doing it wrong. He wasn't completely serious, but it's one of them things where you write hot take after it and you don't really mean to insult anyone. So I was looking at that like, no, I really don't need to take notes though. I write great things without having to sit down for hours plotting everything out. The best things usually come to me in the middle of me writing up a paragraph. Then I might stop if I have to think about it for a bit. But I don't sit down and take a note anywhere to do it.
Fair enough.
It's pretty great though that
it's worth noting that despite the differences in our techniques and our what would you call it, like our affinities for our own techniques, that neither of us is a successful author.
Oh yeah. It's
so whatever we're doing, it's the wrong thing somehow.
Absolutely. If you're just looking at people who take notes and don't as the binary of the situation, you're missing the forest for the trees here. Neither of us make money doing this, so
you're missing the ocean for the trees.
We are giving this advice half-heartedly. Or, well, not necessarily half-heartedly, but we're just giving this advice as like, this is what we like to do. This is our hobby. This is how we have fun. And if you're actually trying to make money with it, I don't know if any of it works or not. And I can only point you.
Well, what's important about being a writer is that I feel like the people who are successful writers should probably also enjoy writing. Like, this is one of those things that's so difficult to actually make money at that if you don't like it, if you don't enjoy it, in some way, I'm not going to say stop, but like at the same time, you might realize that you might try to, that of all the things to not enjoy, to try to make a living at, this might be the worst.
Yeah, if you're writing to make money and you hate writing, I would recommend something else. Do comic books.
Comic books are big now.
Do YouTube.
There's a lot
do
of
something.
indie. There's a lot of good indie work in the comic books too.
You probably have more fun editing videos and things and doing something a bit more technical if you absolutely hate writing fiction.
Yeah.
There's literally no reason I can think of to try to write fiction to make money if you hate writing fiction. It is the absolute worst state of affairs I could imagine for a job.
Yeah. It's okay to write as a hobby and not make money. It's okay to love writing and make money. Do not feel obligated to be a writer if you prefer reading to writing. Because it's okay to be a reader too.
There was that one jagoff with the hot take on Twitter that I ran across once that was like, if you're not writing to make money, you're not doing it right. It's like, what? No, I have a full-time job. I'm good.
No.
I like writing
that
stories.
Nonsense should be ignored because it is nonsense.
Yeah. Like, how many hobbies could we apply that to? It's like,
well, you can apply that to anything that people enjoy.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
You can make money playing video.
If you're not
imagine
if you're cooking food for yourself and you're not making it for a large group of people so that you can make money, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and it's like, imagine like 30 years ago that was all you ever heard. It's like, well, you're not going to grow up and make money playing video games. Now tons of people make money playing video games, and it's like, so can we sit back now and be like, well, if you're not playing video games to make money, you're doing it wrong? It's like, no, this was something that everyone enjoys as a hobby.
Right.
I mean, people used to keep journals all the time. Nobody was doing that to make $1 million. Nobody was doing that to make it a career. Writing is fun. It's.
I was going to make a really dark joke.
Why didn't you? Why do you not make these jokes? You are okay. So here's the problem.
I mean, there's one person who wrote a journal with the express purpose of making $1 million. Anne Frank.
Was that the express purpose, though?
I mean, that's the result.
That wasn't the purpose, though.
Well, I mean,
I don't think Anne Frank was the one that made $1 million.
That's kind of the darkness of the joke. That like, what if Anne Frank was like, man, this journal is going to be great. I'm going to sell 1 million copies of this.
All right, well, we already got canceled by that group of people with the Grimm's fairy tales, so putting that aside, this might be your problem. No, sure. You were just saying that you didn't find it as easy to just, like have all the fun stuff and the jokes and things like I do. It's because you're holding back these jokes, man.
Maybe it is. Okay, short story idea. Anne Frank, but she really wants to make $1 million from her diary.
Look, you know me. I would totally write that story, and I would totally put it up.
I'm saying I might write that story.
I might actually have to make that one of my Alien Bangs stories. They go off and meet Alien Bangs and Jupiter Maxine Phillips meet Anne Frank. We'll make it a happy ending too. They save her at the last moment.
Oh, sure, that works.
Or not. I mean.
Or not.
It would be equally funny if they're just like, well, anyway, we got to go, and they're just like, they both don't know history enough to know who that is.
Oh, this is a really nice journal. It's good for you for writing this out. Yeah, I don't know, something. Anyway.
Oh my God, have it be their fault that she gets discovered.
Oh God, that's really dark. This went from, hey, let's do a fun and funny talking about, to this is the darkest stuff you will hear all week.
I don't know about that. I mean, just read the news, man. I can't compete anymore. It's
yeah.
It's like what are they doing?
That's true.
What are they doing now in Canada, saying that they can give people life sentences for what they interpret as hate speech? So
is that what's happening? Oh goodness.
Oh yeah, it's totally true. I don't know if they're trying to pass a law that says something like, but it's like one of them things where it's so vaguely worded. It's like, oh, you can just use this to jail your political opponents.
We call it the Star Chamber Act.
Of all the countries that I thought would fall into Nazism the quickest, Canada wasn't even on the radar, to be honest. And they're like,
no, it was not. It was not on there.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, they've hit that border and are accelerating at this point. So we're canceled by Canada.
Somehow
a second
they overtook
time.
the UK.
Yeah, we are now canceled by Canada a second time. I can't remember what the first time is, but I'm pretty sure we. It was the cheese thing, wasn't it? It was the Wisconsin cheese and.
Yeah, maybe.
Or no, that was Sweden. That was Sweden and Wisconsin. That episode.
Something like that. Yes.
When all is said and done, I'm going to have to write a book about the entire world coming after you and me, and our attempts to evade all the people that have canceled us.
Yeah, constant assassination attempts for our off-color jokes about one group or another. Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, well, it'll just be a bunch of like stereotype jokes about the various like countries and people that are after us. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's the Swedes. How do you know? It's like an exploding package of German chocolates arrives in the mail.
Yeah.
Poison cheese curds from Wisconsin.
We just narrowly escape the Polish by like putting a screen door on a submarine.
Oh, that's great. So we've effectively been canceled by everyone now.
Basically, yes. The size of the group grows significantly with each episode.
Yeah, it'll take people a while to accustom themselves to it, but sooner or later everyone will just be like, oh yeah, those are the canceled guys. We just
those are the canceled guys.
Those are the guys we need to go after.
And then we really will be like the Dirty Pair.
You're right.
Yeah. it's like fiction fact moving toward fiction somehow.
Yeah, that's the running gag in the Dirty Pair universe is that they're not quite a famous pair of agents, they're an infamous pair of agents. So like
right.
Everyone's always worried when they're on the case because horrible things always happen even if it's not their fault.
Right. All right. Well, I think we can call it here, and I don't know. Talking about some stories. There'll be links in the description to our fiction blog, so you can see what, if anything, we've put up since then.
Find our names, addresses, and social security numbers on our Discord, so that you can dox us.
Yeah, and then send me some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
All right. The second Talkin' About episode of the Wordy Pair. I'm Rudy.
And I am Jonathan Tyler at the address 74A. And I'm Justin.
Yeah, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's @Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, @Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.